There we go. Good morning.
That was exciting, wasn't it? So if you're watching on the replay, we just had a little 30-second countdown thing. It's amazing how long 30 seconds can seem.
It did, and we couldn't talk to each other either. So it was, it's like, what do we do? It's like we're in a proper green room and everything.
Excruciating. What are we talking about this morning, Bertie?
Today we're talking about, well, it's there in front of you, Debbie. You can read, can't you? Taking action on your ideas is today's subject.
And whether we can read.
And whether we can read, yes. That's right.
Perfect. So this follows on from last week when we were talking about this idea of like creating space in your business to have ideas.
Yeah.
This week we're talking about, great, so you've created space, maybe you've got some ideas. If you've got some ideas, write them in the comments because we're going to talk about that in a bit. Now we're going to talk about what do you do when you have the ideas? Like, how do you take action on them? Because having ideas is easy. Like, people come up with ideas all the time. It's the implementation that's hard.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not the idea, it's the execution of it, and that's always something that I stick by. So yes, if you're joining us today, then please hit the like button. That's what you can do if you're watching YouTube. Hit the like button. Tell us you're here. Comment in the comments. Tell us where you're from, and yes, it'll be great to see you. And if you're listening on the podcast, then then we're in your ears and everything.
If you're listening on the podcast, I just did a thumbs up sign, so you'll be well happy about that.
Fantastic.
Thumbs up.
You're executing your idea. So I'm gonna let's go a bit Jack and Ori. I'm gonna tell you a little story. So back in 2004, I was driving for a job interview and had this idea for ordering takeaway online. It was like, okay, you can't order takeaway online. Maybe there's Domino's and things like that. And I didn't tell anybody about that idea, literally for about 18 months. And then I told somebody about the idea, and then it made it real. And then actually I started testing it and going out and seeing whether it was viable, launched that business, sold it to Just Eat 6 years later. The rest is history. After then, the amount of people that had said to me, I had that same idea. Like, well, you didn't do it, did you? That's the difference. There's a difference between having an idea. Everybody has ideas. Someone's probably got the next billion idea unicorn in their head right now. But it's not having the idea that separates us. It's the people that can go out there and execute it. So that's what we want to talk about today, executing your ideas.
Were those people, I'm just curious. So obviously, it was a really good idea. You executed and then you exited and you managed to sell it. And then you went and worked for Just Eat. It's a really good entrepreneurial story. When you got those people coming up to you and going, I had that idea, were they happy at your success, or were they like begrudging, like, I could have done that. I could have sold a business to Just Eat.
Yeah, definitely the latter. Yeah, it was almost like well, I had that idea, so I'm better than you because I had that idea 2 years before you launched it. It's like, well, where's your business, mate? Do you know what I mean? Like that's literally how these conversations go. I mean, that's a very big example,
Yeah, but it's a great example, though, isn't it? It's a great example. And like, there is that idea of like missing the boat, isn't there? Having the idea, not executing it, and then feeling a bit pissed off, like, oh, shit, I could be that person. I could be that person who built that business. But it's the doing of it, isn't it? So, so we're going to be talking about how to execute your ideas. I wanted to kind of tell another story. So we're into storytelling. It's not my story. It's a story from a book called Big Magic. And it's this idea that we believe that we are geniuses. Like, the word genius is about us. I'm a genius. When the word first came about, it meant that your genius was almost like a genie, like the genie of the lamp. And the genius would visit you and whisper ideas into your ear. And if you didn't act on those ideas, the idea would float away and find somebody else who would act on them. So I love this idea that actually the ideas are kind of their own being, and they visit you. And if you don't act on them, they'll go and find somebody else who wants to act on them. And I think that's really poignant. It's like somebody else will do it if you're not doing it. So if you really want to do it, you've got to grab the thing by the horns, the bull by the horns, and give it a go. Otherwise, you're always going to be that person who's like, I had that idea, feeling regret, which is a terrible feeling, isn't it?
It is.
Lying on your deathbed thinking, I could have come up with an app that sold takeaway. So yeah, tell let's get into the idea of how do we take action on these ideas then. What advice have we got for people?
Yeah, well, just before we do that, I'll just say morning, Steve. So yeah,
morning, Steve.
Busy posting blogs from his website. There we go. So yeah, how do you actually take action on them? Well, a lot of the time it comes down to prioritizing. So we spoke last week about creating the space to work on those ideas. So just as silly as it sounds, having an hour a week where you just literally then move and say, I'm going to work on these things now. And then it's getting rid of those limiting beliefs, which, we could talk about all day. But like, what actually is it that's stopping you doing those things?
Yeah.
And then, questioning those things, because a lot of the time there's not actually that much. And it's scenarios that we create in our own head that actually stop us from moving forward. A lot of, with that business, like it's, the Fill My Belly example, it's like, overnight success, right place at the right time. It was hard work. It was a lot of hard work and sacrifice to put that thing in. But it didn't just start. I didn't just go and pay somebody to go and build this system, because I'm not a coder. So I had to get somebody to do it. I went out and tested it. So the first iteration of that was taking a week off work where I was doing door-to-door sales for NTL. So I took a week off and had this terrible presentation that I knocked up in Microsoft Paint that looked like a website, and that's what I was selling. So it was like, look, if you join this, it's 300 quid startup fee. And I got 5 of those people in that week just from that presentation and my enthusiasm. And then I went in on the Monday, handed my notes in, because I knew that people wanted the product I was going to build. But I didn't spend any time and energy like building all of that stuff there. And I just had a logo, which I'd paid like 200 quid for, and the presentation. And that was it. So you don't necessarily, like, if you've got these big ideas, you can test them small first, is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and then you're reducing the risk, aren't you? Like, you're not creating something, you're not putting loads of time and effort in, you're just taking the bare bones of that concept or that idea and taking action on it by talking about it to other people and seeing, is it viable? Has it got legs? And I think around that stuff, that self-limiting beliefs, maybe if you've got a really good idea, like, ask yourself, who would I have to be to make this idea possible? Like, what skills do I need? Like, who could I talk to? You're not ever on your own in this space. Like, you went and created a website and paid for a logo, and you started talking to people and it took a week of work. Like, think, what assets have you got that will help you implement that idea? And if you need help from other people, go and ask for it as well. I think that's really key, isn't it? You don't have to do all that stuff yourself, but if you can test those ideas without spending any money or as little money as possible, then you're reducing the risk.
Exactly. And the money that you spend is relevant. So if you've got like a new product, relevant, that's not the word, relative is the word I was looking for, is relative. So, if you've got like, I spent a couple of hundred quid on that. If you've got an idea, you might just spend 20 quid on a Facebook ad testing it and just have a landing page, Facebook ad, boom, you can test your ideas in that way. So there are lots of different ways. So it's all relative to the size of the project. But what I'm talking about today isn't necessarily big things. It's just small things as well. Maybe it's just putting your face out there and doing stories on social media. Maybe it's creating reels. Maybe it's that first post that you make. Because what happens is when you don't take action on your ideas, is then you'll start to see people that have done that thing. It's like, it's the same thing. I was going to do that. And now if I do it, it looks like I'm copying them because you couldn't go out and do it the first time. But there's a lot of these ideas aren't original half the time. And we get caught up on what people will think about us and what our fears are. And if I post this thing, what if so-and-so from school I've not spoken to for 20 years sees it and then give me a negative comment? It's like, are you really letting them? Hey, your business is like this is your business. One more thing I'll just add. When I took that week off work, I remember telling a few people about it, and people thought I was insane. Not necessarily because they thought the idea wouldn't work, and some people did, but they couldn't get their head round that I was taking a week's holiday, bear in mind, a week's holiday, to then go out and do the same thing that I did in the day job. So it's like all of those small things add up. Now I ignored them, but it's like, why are you taking a week off? Why don't you just go on holiday, mate? It's like, well, because I'm passionate. I want to try this idea. But why don't you just sell it? Like, people couldn't get their heads around that very small concept. So these small things you will come up against day in, day out. If you're focused on your vision, on your mission, on what you want to do, it makes this stuff easier. So all of these things help you take action, but you can do it. I promise you, you can do it.
And there might be a little bit of sacrifice there, mightn't there? Like you took a week off work, or it might be maybe you need to spend an hour every morning for the next couple of months, like working on your idea or writing on it. Or maybe it's like, oh, I've got this idea, I don't have a lot of time. Like, could you stop watching less Netflix in the evening? Like, it's always up to you, isn't it, how you use your time? And I think if you think your idea is really good and it's got legs and you want to give it a go, there's going to be a balance, isn't there, where you're going to have to take away something from what you're doing currently to give time to that idea to put it out there. But you can always find slots of time. Like, we do waste a lot of time doing various bits and bobs, don't we? So I think that's a really good key of like that week of annual leave, or what time, how could you use time differently if you really believe it's a good idea to put the time in to give it a go, just to test it out. It's how gutting for all those people that were like, God damn it, I had that idea. It's like, great, but it's not the end goal.
It's not, and it happens all the time. You must have seen it, Debbie, and with your clients, and even probably the stuff you've done. Maybe you've thought about something that's like, damn it, take it first.
Yeah, exactly. Or they've written about a thing or they've written that book. I want to write that book. I had that idea for that book, or I had, it happens all the time. And I think actually it's that stepping back and going, will it make the boat go faster? Where do I want to be? What am I going to do with these ideas? And what can I sacrifice in my day-to-day life to put that stuff in there? So what have we got here from Steve? If it's a big thing you have as an idea and you're already so busy, do you let the genie genius pass it on? I mean, yeah, because it's totally up to you, isn't it? You've got this genie, they're whispering the idea, and you're like, I haven't got the time to honor this idea right now. We're the stewards of these ideas in a way, aren't we? We look after them. And sometimes you do have to just let the idea pass on and then be really happy when you see somebody else do it. I think if you think, I'll regret this, though, if you really listen to your intuition, you're like, if I saw somebody else do this, would I be gutted? Then maybe it's worthwhile putting the time in. But if you don't have an emotional attachment to the idea, maybe you can just let it go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I always say to people, just as those ideas come in, this is what we spoke about a couple of weeks ago.
Write them down, yeah.
Write them down. And then just having 20 minutes a week just to look through those ideas. Then you're like, that's shit. Wow, this is gold. Like, I'm still thinking about this. I'm still thinking about this idea. Okay, right. How can I test it out? What can I do about it? And then go and try it. And I've known people then that have just actually, gone ahead and built those landing pages and sent those ads. Yeah. And actually nothing's happened. It's like, that's a great thing. You've spent 50 quid on some ads there. Yeah. You now know that idea wasn't viable from the test that you've ran. You can put it to bed now. You can put it to bed, and it's cost you 50 quid. But at least you tried. And what you haven't done is spent 20 grand on a website or an app and done the same thing, because it wouldn't have made the slightest bit of difference. Having that physical app there wouldn't have made a difference if people didn't want to buy it in the first place.
Perfect. So that's a good point to end on. So come and join us next week for 10 minutes when we'll be pouring more business elixir advice into your ear. Oh, we just got a really big comment.
This is a big, long comment from Nopodon there. Let's have a look.
Where's our faces? We just need to peek over
You've
it.
Probably got Nopodon. Nopodon is the absolute Don on this. He knows all about this stuff. This is where I learned it all from. So this will be a good comment. Let's have a look. Thinking of Zappos. Exactly.
Yeah, so they're the shoes people, aren't they?
Yeah.
So Zappos didn't know if people would buy shoes online back in early 2000. So they set up a website, walked across the street to a shoe store and took a photo of a pair of shoes, posted it on their crappy site. If someone ordered a pair of shoes, they would walk across the street, pay for the shoes and ship them. They were testing the risky assumption that people would buy shoes online. Yeah, great. That's brilliant. Put a pair of shoes up, people buy them, sell another pair of shoes. Then you sell another pair of shoes. And then eventually you can sell it to Amazon for $1 billion. I mean, that's a good news story, isn't it? And it's that crappy website, walking across the road, pair of shoes. What a great idea. And then you can sell it for billions. So it doesn't have to be all shiny at the beginning, doesn't it? It doesn't have to be all perfect for you to give these ideas a go. You just got to test out those basic kind of theories and assumptions. And if people go for it, just keep building on it.
Exactly. That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for that huge comment that even covered our faces.
Yay! More comments like that.
So we will be back next week at Friday, 10 a.m. For 10 minutes.
Ish.
Ish. Yeah. 15 minutes, 20 seconds.
See you then.
Next week. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.